Hey, this is thecanddchannel. I'm Chris. This is MMA for you. I'm going to be doing my predictions for UFC Fight Night 63, Mendes versus Lamas, which happens on April 4th. Overall, I actually like this card as far as like name value goes. You got multiple Ultimate Fighter winners and Julianna Pena and Michael Chiesa. Guida is pretty well known. Maynard fought for a title. Carmouche has fought for a title. Dustin Poirier, former top 10 featherweight. Iaquinta and Masvidal, two up-and-comers in lightweight. Mendes and Lamas both fought for the title as well. The last two fights on card, Shamil Abdurahimov versus Timothy Johnson, are two UFC debutantes, I guess. And the only fight that's like doesn't have anything with name value or like real like blue chip prospects or anything like that, probably like Stallings versus Justin Jones, but that's like the first fight of the night. Otherwise, not too bad as far as name value goes. Lauren Murphy, even former Invicta UFC bantamweight champion. So, it's actually not a bad card. Just if you're just looking at names that you might recognize. Let's get started. Okay, for the main event, we have Chad Mendes fighting Ricardo Lamas. Ricardo Lamas, 15-3 record, 4 wins by KO TKO, 4 wins by sub. He has 2 losses by KO TKO, 32 years old on a 2-fight win streak, training out of MMA Masters. He is well-rounded. His stand-up's good. His ground and pound's actually really good. He's a good wrestler with good takedown defense. His Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills solid as well. He submitted Cub Swanson with an arm triangle. Submitted Dennis Bermudez with a guillotine. I think Lamas' biggest strength is how opportunistic he is about getting the finish. Chad Mendes, 16-2 record, 6 wins by KO TKO, 2 wins by sub. He's 29 years old, training out of Team Alpha Male. He's a strong wrestler with strong top control, really strong takedown defense. Stand-up is greatly improving. He's shown to be heavy-handed. He's one of the only guys that I've ever seen wobble Jose Aldo. He's a good scrambler as well. Here's the thing with Ricardo Lamas and me. I suck at picking Ricardo Lamas fights. I'm just terrible at them. I tend to underestimate the guy. I picked him correctly in losing to Jose Aldo. The reason why I don't pick Lamas correctly is simply because a lot of times at any one aspect of MMA, he's generally not, a good amount of times he's not better than his opponents on paper, But he's one of those guys that can find the slightest openings and get the finish. He drops Dennis Bermudez with a jab and gets the guillotine choke. I think Eric Koch slipped or he got taken down, and just during that time, during that time of, I guess, bewilderment, when you're taken down, when you're like pretty much taken down, he goes for ground and pound. It's really opportunistic. Even though he got Cub Swanson to submit to the arm triangle, is something I think he took his back and then Cub Swanson rolled right into that arm triangle, and he kind of forced that on him. Looking at his individual skills, a lot of times he's not he's a good wrestler, but he's always. A lot of times he's not always like the better wrestler. He's not also the better striker. He's not a particularly great striker, but he's not a bad striker. And his Brazilian Jiu skills, while are very good, it's not like he can't go to the ground with the guy as well. With that said, I think Chad Mendes, that guy, his takedowns are really good. Doesn't always throw ground and pound. He kind of uses takedowns to disrupt rhythm. He kind of just takes opponents down and kind of holds them there. Aside of the Lance fight, you see actually a lot of his fights actually. The other thing is his stand-up has greatly improved. Like I said, his fight against Aldo really showed. That was a fight of the year candidate. And, I mean, one of the few guys I've ever seen wobble Aldo and really get some clean strikes on him. He didn't get the better of the stand-up against Aldo. I thought, ultimately Aldo won. But, like, man, Mendes did really good in it. Showed some real improvement in his striking. So, with that said, yeah, I am going to go with Chad Mendes for the win here. I think he's the better striker. It's a case of I think he has a better overall skill set than Mendes, or at least in individual aspects of MMA. I think he's a better striker. I think he's a better wrestler. Equally good scrambler. I'd say like pure Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Ricardo Lamas is probably better. As far as ground and pound goes, I'd probably get the advantage to Lamas. And like I said, would it surprise me if Lamas somehow drops Mendes and gets a choke or a guillotine? Or maybe Mendes shoots a really sloppy takedown for some reason and then he gets a guillotine? Wouldn't surprise me. So that's what Ricardo Lamas does, and that's why he's so hard to pick for me, because he kind of defies skill set, and I generally go by skill set to determine winners or losers, or to do my predictions. So Chad Mendes for the win here. Next fight after that, Jorge Masvidal fights Iaquinta. Masvidal, 28-8 record, 10 wins by KO TKO, 2 wins by sub. He also has 2 losses by submission. He's 30 years old on a 3-fight win streak. He trains out of ATT. He has strong takedown defense and strong counter wrestling. I'd even contend that Jorge Masvidal probably is in the top 5 as far as takedown defense and counter wrestling. Maybe even in the UFC. Like, out of all the fighters in the UFC, he might have some of the best takedown defense. At the very least, top 5 takedown defense in lightweight division. His offensive takedown ability actually isn't too bad either. He showed, he's able to take down Darren Cruikshank. It's in his arsenal to do so. He does have good kickboxing. He has a strong chin and some really underrated Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. Tapped out Michael Chiesa with a Darce choke, actually. Iaquinta, 11-3 record with 1 draw, 6 wins by KO TKO, 1 win by sub. All 3 of his losses are by submission. He's 27 years old on a 3-fight win streak, training out of Cerro Longo. He's a strong boxer. He uses combinations. Shown to be pretty heavy-handed as well. Dropped like Kevin Lee. Knocked out Ross Pearson, and while it was standing, he did get the TKO victory over Joe Lozon. He's a good wrestler, but he generally uses his wrestling in reverse. So he does have strong takedown defense. His submission defense does need some work. He did get caught by like Mitch Clarke from was it an anaconda or Darce from the bottom? I've actually learned that move one time. Cool move. It's crazy that Mitch Clarke was able to do that in high level MMA. This fight's pretty tough for me to call. I mean, I honestly think both these guys are pretty much at least around or at that same rung on the ladder. It's totally argumentative, but I think they're very close as far as pecking order goes. Strength of resume and just overall perceived skill set. Obviously, Masvidal has a lot more experience than Iaquinta. I think one thing that really hurts Masvidal, and I've seen it before, he's not exactly a quick starter. I think he's a pretty slow starter. While he has a really good chin, he is a guy that gets dropped. First round, he has gotten dropped by Michael Chiesa, who actually isn't the best puncher. He has really awkward punches. Got dropped by him in the first round. Also got dropped really heavily from Darren Cruikshank by a punch in the first round. The guy's really, has some good recuperative skills and some real resilience and a good chin. Doesn't mean he doesn't get dropped. He also got dropped in the third round by a spinning heel kick by Rustam Khabilov. So that's something that works against Masvidal right there. In my opinion, I think he's something of a slow starter. I think he said so himself. He's a guy that needs to get hit in order to really get in the fight. Once he does get in the fight, though, his defense actually gets better. He starts moving his head a lot more. He really finds his range pretty well. But, that's a deficit. That's not a good deficit to be in, assuming that, you're essentially giving away the first round, in a sense. With Iaquinta, if he can take that first round, he's already up ahead. I don't know if Masvidal could really take it back, and take back the fight against a guy that has so much momentum right now as Iaquinta. This guy has been looking more and more like a blue chip prospect. Solid stand-up, good wrestler. Trains at a very good camp in Cerro Longo. I am very high in Jorge Masvidal, though, man. More often than not, I pick him correctly. Good, solid fighter. Really coming up in the UFC and the UFC lightweight division. I think, it's almost a case of like, it's his time type of thing, where it's like, so I'm kind of leaning, I'm going to go with Iaquinta here. Like I said, I don't like Masvidal's slow starting. I like the improvements I see out of Iaquinta. I see a lot of upward momentum for him. He's riding high on momentum right now. I don't like his submission defense. I'm not worried that the fight will go there. Masvidal, though, is a very good boxer / kickboxer himself. So, it's argumentative to say who's a better striker. I lean a little towards Iaquinta as being the better striker at this point, but it's totally argumentative. I mean, I'm not really basing that upon anything besides just what I see. I just kind of like the combinations that Iaquinta has thrown. I'm liking his patience in his striking these days. But, one can argue that Masvidal probably, one can argue he has the better striking. I think at the very least it's very close. And I think, like I said, where they are right now in their careers, they're pretty close as far as like rankings go. The level of competition they've beaten up until this point, it's relatively close. So I'm leaning towards Iaquinta here for the win. But I can definitely see Masvidal taking it. I can see it, but ultimately I'm gonna go with Iaquinta for the win here. Next fight after that, Michael Chiesa fights Mitch Clarke. Mitch Clarke has an 11-2 record, 1 win by TKO, 7 wins by sub. 29 years old on a 2-fight win streak, training out of MMA Lab. The likes of like Benson Henderson. He has good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. He's a good wrestler. His stand-ups is average. Got that really nifty win over, nifty submission win over Iaquinta, though. It's really like a high mark of his career. Michael Chiesa, 11-2 record. 8 wins by submission, 3 wins by decision. 27 years old. Pretty tall for the weight class for a lightweight. He's 6'1". Uses that length to like take the back and whatnot. And for leverage. Trains out of Sikh Jiu-Jitsu with the likes of Sam Cecilia and Julianna Pena. He is an Ultimate Fighter winner with strong Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. Particularly good at taking the back. This guy is, in my opinion, definitely one of the top back takers of the lightweight division. He's a good wrestler too. If he gets you against a cage, he's pretty relentless about getting that takedown or just finding that back standing. He's actually a guy that is not afraid to take the back. He'll get the clinch or go for the takedown and like maneuver himself to a guy's back, to his opponent's back, and jump in his back while his opponent's still standing. It's not uncommon for him to do that. His striking is improving. I liked what I saw, even though he lost to Joe Lozon. I did like what I saw from his striking. More, in particular, his in close striking is a lot better. His knees especially are really good because his punches and footwork are still very awkward. With all that said, I got to go with Michael Chiesa for the win here. I'd argue that he's probably the better grappler. His striking's improving enough. It's at least as good, if not better, than Mitch Clarke's. I actually find Michael Chiesa to be a pretty decent prospect, actually. So, yeah, like I said, I think Michael Chiesa might even be able to take Mitch Clarke's back. Wouldn't surprise me if he did, especially off like a scramble or something like that. So, Michael Chiesa for the win there. Next right after that, Julianna, the Venezuelan vixen Pena, fights Milana Dudieva. Dudieva has an 11-3 record, 3 wins by KO or TKO, 6 wins by sub. She also has 2 losses by submission. 25 years old on a 3-fight win streak. Trains at a Paris Vet FT with the likes of Shamil Abdurahimov, who fights on the prelims. Of course, I think Abdurahimov is training out of like a new Russian super camp as well these days, though. Nonetheless, back to Dudieva. She has a judo background with good Brazilian. I say Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I should actually say submission grappling is more of what I should say. She's stand-up's like below average. Sometimes, her striking is a way to utilize the clinch. So similar to Pena, actually, she can kind of just bull rush into that clinch. It's not very tactical. And in fights I've seen her, and she loses position in grappling. If she's on top, she does get reversed. She gets kind of over anxious going for stuff or trying to get like good ground and pound and stuff like that. Julianna Pena, 5-2 record, 2 wins by KO or TKO, 3 wins by sub. 25 years old, training out of Sikh Jitsu. She is an Ultimate Fighter winner. She last fought in November 2013 against Jessica Rakoczy to win the Ultimate Fighter. Her style fighting, I would say, as far as stand-up goes, she really just throws haymakers and bull rushes into that clinch. Once she gets a hold of her opponent, she does have good offensive takedown ability. Her tap control is good. Her ground and pound solid. And her Brazilian jiu-jitsu is good. I'm not fond of the bull rushing style. It is a very outdated style of fighting at the highest level of mixed martial arts. I see a lot of very green fighters do that. Both of them do that. Pena pretty much won her season fighting that style of fight. Dudieva is even worse though, in the sense that there's another green thing that some MMA fighters do when they're green, is that they'll try and get this head and arm throw. They give up their back doing it, miss the throw and get their back taken, or else just end up on the bottom because of it. Dudieva still does that. So that's not a really good look for her. Like I said, I'm not fond of that bull rush to the clinch style. I've heard it termed swing and cling. So that swing and cling style of striking and just style of fighting, it's not going to work at even the mid-level on the UFC. But it's still enough to beat Milana Dudieva, who, quite honestly, loses positions really badly in the grappling department. She will get reversed when she is on top. I can see Pena at least also hits harder. So that's another thing with her. When she bull rushes, at least she hits hard. Dudieva, not so much. And like I said, I can see Pena get on top of Dudieva and, work ground and pound and maybe even hunt for the submission. So Julianna Pena for the win there. Next fight after that, Guida fights Robbie Peralta. Guida, 31-15 record, 4 wins by KO or TKO, 15 wins by sub. He also has 7 losses by submission. He's 33 years old, training out of Jackson Winklejohn. He has some strong cardio with good wrestling. He's really relentless about getting his takedowns, especially if he has his opponent up against a cage. He can at times be something of a grinder. He has a high pressure style where he's always moving forward. Good top control. He's a pretty resilient guy, but he has some awkward stand-up. Robbie Peralta, 18-5 record with 1 no contest, 13 wins by KO or TKO, 2 wins by sub. He also has 3 losses by submission. 29 years old, trains out of Team Explode MMA, the likes of Bellator fighter Derek Anderson and former UFC fighter Sean Johnson. He's a good boxer, really heavy-handed. He definitely has one-punch knockout power. His takedown defense is decent. He is very weak off his back. I was pretty high on Robbie Peralta as something of a dark horse prospect for a while. He did end up losing to Akira Kurosani. Akira Kurosani was just using superior movement, mixing in takedowns to get the win in that fight. The eye-opener for Peralta, though, was when he lost to Thiago Tavares. He looked kind of amateurish, to be honest with you. He got bullied up against the cage. Thiago Tavares managed to take him down. What did he do? Get a headlock or something? He incorrectly, shielded himself from getting his guard pass. So he got his guard pass super easily. And then, did he give up his back? I think he may have done that. And then he got finished. I mean, it was a very, very, not a good look for Peralta. As bad, what do you want to say, Guida has regressed or not? I mean, he had a good fight with Kawajiri. I mean, the fun Guida that you see generally was a losing Guida. The one that wins tends to grind out decisions. I mean, grind out victories, is what I should said. I can see Guida just grinding Peralta up against the fence, maybe getting some takedowns, just outworking him, doing that stay busy ground and pound, frustrating Peralta for the win. Peralta, the only avenue I see Peralta winning this fight really is if he gets a knockout or TKO. Despite Chad Mendes getting the knockout on Guida, I mean, Guida's shown to be pretty resilient and to have a good chin. Like I said, I just think that Guida's probably gonna, Thiago Tavares is able to do it. Bully or get Peralta's back against the cage, grind him out, work for those takedowns, and just get the win that way. So Guida for the win there. Next one is that Dustin Poirier fights Carlos Diego Ferreira. Ferreira has an 11-1 record, 1 win by TKO, 6 wins by sub. He's 30 years old. He is a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. He's really good off his back, real active. Stand-up, I'd say, is average. He kind of throws some haymakers. It's not really technically sound. Did knock out Ramsey Nijem, though. I wouldn't say it's terrible, though, but wouldn't really say it's bad. With Dustin Poirier, he has a 16-4 record, 7 wins by KO TKO, 6 wins by sub. 26 years old, training out of ATT. He's moving up to 155. He lost to last 75 at 145 was against Conor McGregor, and he got knocked out. At his best, he is a good kickboxer. He's really aggressive. He has some good Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills. He's a good scrambler, but his stand-up defense is atrocious. I mean, Akira Kurosani managed to either drop or wobble him. Of course, Conor McGregor managed to drop him and get the TKO. Is that a TKO victory? I think it's TKO victory. That one Ultimate Fighter winner whose name escapes me at the moment, who has really crappy striking, was doing pretty good in the stand-up against Poirier. Poirier just historically has some terrible stand-up defense. I don't know how long he can just rely on being resilient too, because he really needs to work on his defense. Nonetheless, with Ferreira, I don't think he's not that great of a striker. I mean, maybe he catches him with some haymaker or something like that. But otherwise, I can see Dustin Poirier using combinations, probably fighting at range even, to get the win. So Dustin Poirier for the win here. Okay, on the prelims, which will be on Fox Sports 1. There are no Fight Pass prelims. Liz Gorilla Carmouche fights Lauren Murphy. Lauren Murphy, 8-1 record, 6 wins by KO, 2 wins by decision. She's 31 years old. She is a former Invicta FC bantamweight champion. She's a good wrestler with good top control. On a technical level, I'd say her stand-up is below average. And I can't really say anything too great about it, to be perfectly honest with you. Carmouche, excuse me, 9-5 record, 6 wins by KO, 2 wins by submission. She also has 2 losses by submission. 30 years old, trains out of Team Hurricane Awesome. Hate that name, but just to tell you, I just never liked it. She's on a 2-fight losing streak, losing to is it Alexis Davis and Misha Tate, if I'm not mistaken. She's only won 1 of her last 4 fights. I think the last one she has is against Jessica Andrade. She's a good wrestler, pretty strong. Both of them are pretty strong, actually. She's good ground and pound and good top control. I'd say Carmouche's stand-up is also below average as well. So it's really hard for me to call because they're very similar to each other. Both strong, grappling-based fighters, below average stand-up, good top control, you know. One of the differences that lie here, though, strength of competition. Carmouche, besides Jessica Andrade, I think the only opposition she's beaten are opposition that have had are .500 fighters. You know? I don't know how many, besides Andrade, I don't know if she's beaten any competition with with winning or below .500, or you know, better than .500. Lauren Murphy, I mean, she has beaten Sarah DeLelio. She also beat Miriam Nakamoto. You know, it's kind of, you know, I would say freak accident, I guess. And I think she looked pretty good against Sarah McMahon, all things considered. I mean, she did get taken down and grinded on. Some people actually thought Lauren Murphy won just from doing more damage from the bottom. Carmouche, I mean, she did have a really good performance against Mars Kunin, but Kunin historically has pretty bad takedown defense. Once her guard gets past, she turns into a white belt. I'll say this right now, and this is very argumentative. I think Lauren Murphy is more likely to get the takedown on Liz Carmouche than Liz Carmouche getting the takedown on Lauren Murphy. I just think that Murphy is... There isn't really much to base that on, though. It just, from what I see, I just get the impression that Murphy's just the better wrestler than Liz Carmouche. Liz Carmouche also seems to me more of a natural 125-pounder, whereas Lauren Murphy seems more like a legit bantamweight. So the size disparity could play a role here. Both are very strong, but I think Murphy's going to be the bigger fighter. So with that said, I am going to go with Lauren Murphy for the win here. Stylistically, they're very similar. I can see them both just trying to grind out the fight. Next fight with that, Gray Maynard fights Alexander, the Thunder of the North, Yakovlev. Yakovlev has a 21-6 record with 1 draw, 8 wins by KO TKO, 8 wins by sub. He also has 3 losses by submission. 30 years old on a 2-fight losing streak, losing to Damian Maia and Nico Musoke. I believe this fight's going to be at 155, and that will be his first cut to 155 pounds. He has some good stand-up and some good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Gray Maynard, 11-4 record with 1 draw and 1 no contest. 2 wins by KO TKO, 9 wins by decision. All 4 of his losses are by KO TKO. Getting knocked out by the likes of Ross Pearson, Nate Diaz, Frankie Edgar. What's the other time he got knocked out? Let's see. Frankie Edgar, Nate Diaz, Ross Pearson, TJ Grant. And he got knocked out by TJ Grant. He's 35 years old on a 3-fight losing streak. I know he was training at AKA for a while, but I believe he's training at Extreme Couture right now. At his best, he's a strong wrestler with good top control. Stand-up is improving. His stand-up defense isn't very good. And his chin is deteriorating. His nickname actually suits him. I remember seeing a breakdown, technical breakdown of like his fights, and it's like, if Gray Maynard can bully, like he's Gray the bully Maynard, if he can bully his opponent, he can win. And he does well. When his opponent starts fighting back, he actually starts to wilt. And actually, like, I believe it's Coach Mike Reardon was actually saying something similar about him. Even in his wrestling career, he was something like that, where he's kind of a bully, you know, if he can get the takedown and he's, you know, his opponent isn't like really fighting back too much, you know, he looks really good, but once he faces some like good resistance, he starts to wilt. The thing with Yakovlev though, and he said in my fight, she did show that he can get taken down and controlled from top position. Against Nico Musoke, I mean, he just looked okay. I mean, there wasn't anything about like his stand-up that really impressed me or anything like that, or his grappling that really impressed me, you know. I'm going to go with Gray Maynard for the win here. I'm not super confident in the pick just because his chin, it's just not very good. And like I said, once he finds some resistance, he really is something of a bully when he fights. And, you know, if he can bully his opponent, you know, he can do really well. The minute, like, his opponent starts fighting back, you know, he starts to wilt. Like I said, Yakovlev just seemed mid-tier at best to me. Maynard can also get his wrestling game going on. He should be able to actually cruise to victory if he can get his wrestling game on. But yeah, Gray Maynard for the win. Not super confident in that pick, just because of the liability of Maynard's chin at this time. Next fight that, Shamil Abdurahimov fights Timothy Johnson. Timothy Johnson, 8-1 record, 4 wins by KO TKO, 4 wins by sub. He has 1 loss by submission. 29 years old. He is 6'3" on a 7-fight win streak. He's never been past the second round. He is a finisher. It'll be his first fight in the UFC. I saw 2 of his fights. One against Travis View, where he knocked him out, and Brett Murphy, where he also got the TKO victory on him. Took him down, slammed him down, ground and pounded. Did he slam him down? Yeah, I think so. Ground and pounded, and fight was over there. Things I noticed in that fight: a lot of clinching. Stand-up looked okay. His offensive takedown ability isn't too bad. See a lot of clinching in his fights, though. But, it's like 2, I've only seen 2 of his fights. Shamil Abdurahimov, 15-2 record. 7 wins by KO TKO, 4 wins by sub. He's 33 years old. He's 6'3" on a 3-fight win streak. I know, the Fight Finder shows that he trains at a Paris-Bet FT with Milana Dudieva. But I read that he's training at a new Russian super camp called RKC Akhmat. I say Russian super camp, but it's in Chechnya, actually. It's his first fight in the UFC. Some background information with Abdurahimov. He is a 5-time Russian national wushu champion. I saw his fight against Kenny Garner, and I also saw him fight something Oliveira. Actually shows some good. I like his stand-up. He throws a lot of single strikes, though. But one thing I like about his stand-up, he does utilize the jab, which is good. He's constantly working, so there aren't too many lulls in between his offense. And I actually like his clinch game. He looks for trips and throws from the clinch, and he'll throw knees from the clinch as well. Another thing about Abdurahimov is back in, 2010, 11, or 12, something like that. He was on the Bloody Elbow scouting report. He was like the number 2 heavyweight during that time. It was like 4 years ago, though. So, what was that, 2011? Something like that. He's 33, is still a prospect at heavyweight. 29 is actually pretty young for heavyweight. If this fight ends up in the clinch, I actually like Abdurahimov's clinch striking and clinch offense better than Timothy Johnson, who didn't really do much in the clinch from the fights I've seen. Stand-up wise, I'll go with Abdurahimov. Johnson might be the better wrestler, but his wrestling to MMA isn't the greatest, doesn't have an explosive shot or anything like that. And his 2 fights I've seen, lots of clinching. So with that said, I'll go with Shamil Abdurahimov for the win. And finally, Ron Stallings fights Justin Jones. Justin Jones ran 1 record, 1 win by TKO, 2 wins by sub, 27 years old, training out of Victory MMA with the likes of Brad Martinez and Dean Lister. He is a finisher. All I can really say is, because I remember, the only thing I remember from him, and footage I've seen from him, was his fight against Corey Anderson. He has some stand-up. It's a bit reckless. He's kind of, he kind of goes in the pocket and starts throwing. That's throwing haymakers. That's the extent of his offense. He got taken down a lot by Corey Anderson and more or less outboxed. But Corey Anderson's a very good light heavyweight prospect, actually. And this fight's at middleweight. His friend Ron Stallings has a 12-7 record with 1 no contest, 6 wins by KO TKO, 6 wins by sub. That's his 3 losses by KO TKO. 31 years old, 2-fight losing streak. Most recently getting knocked out. Again, his eye really, not really his eye, but his eyebrow. He got a really bad cut from Uriah Hall. Trains out of Team Lloyd Irvin with the likes of James Vick. He does have a Taekwondo background. I actually watched this fight with Josh Williams before doing these prediction videos. And I like his accuracy, he showed a lot of volume in his stand-up, and he has good Brazilian jiu-jitsu skills. Ron Stallings actually wasn't doing half bad against Uriah Hall until he got dropped by that right hand. One thing that does give me cause for concern is like Ron Stallings' range is the same range that like Justin Jones wants to fight in. So that gives me cause for concern. I think Justin Jones has more upside, but he just doesn't have a lot of experience. Both are, Ron Stallings definitely has way more experience than Justin Jones. I think I'm gonna go with Ron Stallings for the win here. Just more experienced fighter. Jones, though, he's a younger fighter with more upside. He's the one that's going to probably show more improvement from fight to fight. So I'm not super confident in this pick, but I'll go with Ron Stallings for the win there. Okay, to recap, on the main card I have Chad Mendes beating Ricardo Lamas, Iaquinta over Jorge Masvidal, Michael Chiesa beating Mitch Clarke, Julianna Pena beating Milana Dudieva, Guida over Robbie Peralta, Dustin Poirier over Carlos Diego Ferreira. On the prelims, I have Lauren Murphy over Liz Carmouche, Gray Maynard beating Alexander Yakovlev, Shamil Abdurahimov over Timothy Johnson, and Ron Stallings beating Justin Jones. So that's it for my predictions for UFC Fight Night 63, Mendes versus Lamas. If you have any comments, just leave them below. That's it for MMA for you. Thank you guys very much.